Over 35% of seniors show early signs of dementia through how they walk, long before they forget a single name. It's not just about moving slower with age. It's not limping from an old injury. Sometimes the very way someone walks becomes the first clue, and most people never notice. What if their walk is already signaling trouble, and you haven't realized it yet? In this video, you'll learn 7 unusual walking patterns that can reveal early brain changes, well before memory loss begins. Spotting them early can help you act sooner and protect the people you love. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Don't miss vital brain health insights that can help keep you and your loved ones safe. Stay connected, stay informed. Number 1. Unsteady turns or trouble pivoting. 3 years before his Alzheimer's diagnosis, Stephen, 74, began turning oddly when he walked. If someone called his name, he'd stop, hesitate, then take a wide, awkward curve just to face them. His wife thought he was dizzy, maybe just overreacting. But it kept happening. At home, in parking lots, even in the kitchen. Once, he bumped into a wall trying to leave the bathroom. That's when his daughter began keeping notes. Experts confirm that difficulty turning while walking, especially taking wide, off-balance, or overly tight turns, can be an early sign of cognitive decline. It often reflects subtle damage in brain regions controlling coordination, spatial awareness, and balance, areas that weaken before memory does. For seniors, that hesitation or awkward pivot might seem small, but it can actually be one of the brain's earliest warning signs that something deeper is starting to misfire. Are you finding these insights useful? Type 1 if this information helps, or 0 if you'd like us to cover other topics. Your feedback guides what we explain next. Number 2. Lost in motion. Freezing. 5 years before her diagnosis, Frances, 76, began stopping mid-walk for no clear reason. She'd be heading to the bathroom or across the living room, then suddenly freeze, as if her body forgot what to do next. Sometimes she'd stand still for 10, even 20 seconds, then start walking again like nothing happened. At first, her family thought she was just distracted, but one day she froze in the middle of a crosswalk, and that's when her son realized something was truly wrong. Studies show that sudden, unexplained pauses while walking, when there's no obstacle or cause, can be an early sign of executive dysfunction in the brain. This freezing gait happens when the brain struggles to plan or coordinate movement. It's often tied to early Parkinson's-related or frontotemporal dementia. In these conditions, motor control begins to falter long before memory loss. For older adults, it's not only confusing, it's dangerous. It's one of the most overlooked early red flags. Number 3. Uneven arm swing. It wasn't until his annual checkup that Richard, 72, noticed something strange. His doctor pointed it out first. His right arm barely moved when he walked. At home, no one had paid attention. His wife assumed he was stiff or tired, maybe an old shoulder injury acting up. But later, watching an old family video, she saw it clearly. Years ago, he swung both arms naturally. Now, one side was motionless. 2 years later, after new behavior changes and repeated questions, Richard was diagnosed with early-stage dementia. Reports show that a reduced or uneven arm swing, especially when only one side is affected, can indicate early neurologic decline. It's often linked to degeneration in the motor cortex or basal ganglia, the regions that manage coordination and balance. For many older adults, it's an easy-to-miss clue that the brain's control over movement is quietly slipping, often years before memory symptoms appear. Over 60% of dementia cases are diagnosed too late, after significant brain damage has already occurred. But experts emphasize that early detection can slow or even stall progression if warning signs are caught in time. That's why these subtle walking changes matter far more than most people think. Number 4, shuffling or dragging feet. 4 years before her diagnosis, Beverly, 75, began walking differently. Her feet barely lifted off the ground. Each step was short and stiff, making a faint dragging sound on the tile. Her daughter joked she needed new shoes, but even in sneakers it continued. One afternoon at the grocery store, Beverly nearly tripped trying to step over a small floor mat. That was the turning point. Her family urged her to get a neurological exam, and soon the reason became clear. Number 5. Shuffling steps. Research confirms that short, shuffling steps often serve as one of the earliest physical warning signs of dementia. This walking pattern, sometimes called a Parkinsonian gait, is common in both Parkinson's disease and certain dementias, especially vascular and Lewy body dementia. This change in movement reflects a deeper issue, a breakdown in how the brain coordinates smooth, automatic motion. It's not simply about muscle weakness, it's about how the brain directs the body. And in many cases, this shows up years before any memory problems begin. At first, Anne, 78, thought it was just a sore ankle, but her husband noticed she was dragging her left foot everywhere. It made a faint, scuffing sound across the floor. Even after her ankle healed, the dragging continued. She didn't notice it herself, but the uneven wear on her shoes told another story. A year later, after she began forgetting appointments and losing words, her doctor gave the diagnosis: vascular dementia. Studies show that dragging one foot without injury, pain, or any clear physical cause can signal damage to motor regions of the brain, often affecting just one side. This uneven movement disrupts balance and coordination, and it's also a red flag for neurological decline. It's a warning that should never be dismissed as simple aging or stiffness. Number 6. Restless pacing or wandering. 2 years before his dementia diagnosis, Willie, 73, began pacing the house at odd hours. At 2 or 3 in the morning, he'd walk up and down the hallway, peek outside, then circle back again. When his wife asked what he was doing, he'd shrug and say, "Just checking things." At first, she thought it was stress, but over time, Willie began wandering outside, forgetting why he'd gone on at all. That's when concern turned to alarm. Research suggests that purposeless walking or wandering, especially in familiar spaces, is an early sign of disorientation. It reflects a breakdown in spatial memory and executive function, where the brain loses its link between movement, goals, and direction. What once felt automatic, walking to the kitchen, stepping outside for the mail, now becomes disconnected from intention. This loss of purposeful motion often appears long before obvious memory decline. Number 7. Slowed, hesitant walking. 5 years before her diagnosis, Dorothy, 76, began walking slower, not just from age, but with hesitation. She'd pause before doorways, step off curbs like she wasn't sure it was safe, and even in hallways, she'd stop mid-stride, as if trying to remember where she was going. Her family thought she was just being careful, but when those pauses grew more frequent and her confusion started showing in conversation, they realized something deeper was happening. Experts confirm that slow walking, combined with hesitation, is one of the strongest physical predictors of early dementia. It's not about the legs, it's about the brain struggling to plan, start, and coordinate each movement. This pattern becomes most obvious in new environments, busy spaces, or when multitasking. What looks like caution or clumsiness is often the brain's navigation system beginning to fail. Closing message. If someone you love shows even one of these changes, don't brush it off. It's easy to blame age, arthritis, or bad shoes, but often the body reveals what the brain is trying to hide. The earlier you notice these signs, the more you can do to support them and slow decline before it accelerates. Remember, the body often whispers what the mind cannot say. Catching those whispers early gives you the power to act, to protect, prepare, and care. We love hearing from you. What part of this video felt most eye-opening or helpful? Share your thoughts, questions, or personal experiences below. Your stories inspire us to keep creating meaningful health content. If this video helped you, please pause for a moment and hit subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss vital updates that could protect you and your loved ones. And don't forget to share this with someone you care about, because caring is always the first step toward prevention. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.